All right, here we go. Well, today, Lyor Cohen is kind enough to bring a couple of people with him from the City of Hope, which is a cancer research and treatment organization. We have Jonathan Azu, who's actually on the board member of City of Hope and also was getting treatment for cancer himself, as well as Dr. Tanya Dorff, who is one of the doctors over there. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell me what City of Hope is exactly.
City of Hope is an NCI-designated comprehensive cancer center. So we're an organization that focuses on cancer specifically, and we do a lot of clinical trials and translational research. So taking innovations from basic scientists and putting them into patients.
Okay, and Lyor, how'd you get involved in all this?
So it's really funny because this is the event that the music industry has. And they've been having this event for 50 years. And this year they're celebrating the 50 years of this part of the hospital. And it's one of the, it's funny because for many, many years I wasn't invited, nor did I know about this event. But it was only after I became successful and Def Jam became a thing, and then I went to Warner's, that I suddenly started getting invited and having awareness of this event. And I've attended a few of the events over the years, and it's really the most important music industry event that they have all year. The whole entire music industry comes out for it.
Now, Jonathan, you're a board member, but you actually had cancer yourself, and you're in remission right now?
I did, yeah. Actually, I'm a 3-month prostate cancer survivor.
Wow.
Almost 3 months to the date that I had my surgery done at City of Hope. And as Lyor was saying, I've been affiliated with City of Hope as a music industry executive for decades through various fundraisers that they do, including Spirit of Life that Lyor is going to be honored at this October. But my world took a twist and a turn about 1.5 years ago when I was diagnosed with early stage prostate cancer. And then I began my own personal journey with City of Hope there with me.
Okay. And cancer is a very scary thing. I've always been scared of it myself. In fact, one of my doctors actually gave me like a early screening recently that's it checks for like 100 different types of cancers, like early on a kind of molecular level from what I was told. And luckily I came back clean. But I feel like these tests aren't really very commonplace. Not a lot of people know about them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
There are a lot of these broader cancer screening tests in development. I'm not sure which you specifically had, but the very well-established cancer screening tests include things like a PSA test or a rectal exam to check for prostate cancer, mammograms and pap smears for cervical cancer, colon cancer screening with colonoscopies. And those have been shown to save lives. And, part of our mission is to just make sure people get their screening tests so we can detect cancer early when it's curable.
I mean, when you do catch it early, how different is it in terms of survival rates?
It's a huge difference.
Okay.
The earlier you catch it, the more options you have. Not only are you more likely to be cured, but less likely to suffer complications from needing different kinds of treatments added on top to get you to cure.
Okay. Vlad, let me jump in there. Mm-hmm. For years, they've been asking me to be the honoree. And I just didn't feel like, this was something that I don't like celebrating myself. But over the last few years, so many people that I know, colleagues, artists, started getting inflicted by cancer. And when I started digging in and understanding early detection is one of the most powerful options that a patient has, and one of the biggest problems that we know in the hood is that they don't really subscribe to early detection. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to do this, is because I made my money in Black music, and one of the keys that I want to do is demystify, work on, bring along people that have traditionally been inflicted in a much higher rate. I'm not sure what the percentage is. I'm sure the doctor may have, but I think the effects on Black people of cancer is significantly higher than it is with other cohorts of people.
Well, yeah, I mean, we lost a lot of significant people. For example, Guru from Gangstar died from basically a form of blood cancer. He was young. He was like 49 years old.
This disease, I mean, and it's a plethora of diseases. It's not one disease. Is really, really, it's probably the number one cause of death in America. And so if we could help demystify early detection, if we could get into the hood, if we could talk to people and continue the drumbeat of why early detection is a great thing, I think we'll save lives and help a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I'm going down the list. Big Bang Hank from the Sugar Hill Gang, he died from cancer at 58. Hurricane G, who was down with Redman, who was like a big, big figure at Def Jam. She died last year from lung cancer. I had skin cancer myself, maybe about 10 years ago. And I got lucky because skin cancer is a fairly easy thing. You just kind of cut it out. But had I just ignored it, they would have had to basically cut off my whole face.
I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to cancer, there's no such thing as an easy thing. This is all super, super serious and needs to be have a lot of attention and care. And attention is the key.
I mean, are there certain things, certain lifestyle things that really change, that could really increase cancer?
Of course, there are known exposures. I mean, things like cigarette smoking that increase a person's risk of cancer. But there are many other carcinogens as well in our environment. So some things that we can't control, some foods. It can be a little bit different for different cancers. So there's not a one-size-fits-all prescription for diet, but a lot of the recommendations to help reduce one's cancer risk are really basic common sense, like eating fruits and vegetables, not eating processed meats, those kinds of things.
Well, chemotherapy, that was always known as like the go-to treatment from cancer. But from what I understand, that's taking a back seat to some other treatments. Is that true?
It depends on the cancer you're talking about. Chemotherapy still has a really big role in certain cancers. But I think what people would want to know is that we have so many more types of treatments that are so much less toxic that have been developed because we understand the science, we understand what's happening at the cancer cell level, and then we can design specific treatments that will preferentially kill the cancer cell and do much less collateral damage than something like chemotherapy. So there are targeted therapies that do that for certain cancers. And then a big focus at City of Hope is immunotherapy, which is trying to harness your body's own immune system, which is really good at eradicating things like viruses and bacteria, and is just not able to see cancer all the time because it starts out as part of us. But there are different ways we can activate the immune system to actually recognize that the cancer needs to be eradicated. And it's very powerful when we can leverage some of these immunotherapies.
Just to speak as a patient, one of the things that I discovered in my cancer diagnosis was that I did have options of how I wanted to go about treating the cancer. And, people have various points in life where they may choose one option or the other based upon age, whether they've had children, all sorts of things. And I was really shocked. I thought when I was diagnosed that it would be, here's the solution and this is the only solution. But the team at City of Hope actually laid out multiple options for me, and I sat with my family and we chose a direction.
Right, because you had prostate cancer, which is one of the more scary cancers, right? I
think they're all scary.
They're all scary, but certain
Yes.
ones, skin cancer is less scary
But
than
early
prostate cancer.
detection.
Yeah.
Early detection is the key.
And I'll tell you what was scary for me in my story was that both my father and his younger brother, my uncle, both have metastatic prostate cancer.
Wow.
My father's was caught relatively early, but it did metastasize, and he was, he died of an unrelated cause, but his life was definitely impacted by the treatment that he had to go through for cancer. And then my uncle, within a year of him telling us that he was sick, we were burying him. And what was scary for me was recalling all that when you're told you have cancer, right? Yeah. And the trauma that you have mentally, I almost feel that cancer is just as tough physically as it is mentally.
Yeah.
But the team at City of Hope, and as a board member, I've been next to it for a long time, as I've mentioned, to be a patient there and to recognize that their patient care team is just as it states in the brochures, documents, and fundraisers was everything to me as a patient. And it really helped assist me and my family in getting through this.
This is a little campus that started, 100 years ago. And now it's grown. It's an enormous campus. And it's constantly building new facilities. And also, because they've been focused on cancer, they are focused not simply on the cure, but also how to treat a patient, how to teach early detection, how to treat patients, how to bring them along through the experience, how to deal with the families. This is a comprehensive organization that is dedicated to eradicating cancer, but also trying to make sure that the families and the individual has the best type of care.
When we talk about eradicating cancer, is that a real thing in the future for certain types of cancers, maybe even for all cancers?
It's absolutely already possible for certain cancers.
Okay. For example, which cancers can be eradicated?
So, for instance, testicular cancer is one where we can cure with chemotherapy and affects young males.
Okay. Are you okay, though, after going through chemotherapy? In that section?
Well, so to your point, we do focus a lot on survivorship. It's not enough that we can cure these patients, but we want to do it with the minimal risk, especially in a young gentleman for his long-term health, whether it's cardiovascular health or fertility. And so it's really important, and something that I think comprehensive cancer centers do particularly well, to think about the whole person and their whole cancer journey arc, and not just be in the moment of, curing, which is, of course, where we start, but there's so much more than that. But there are other cancers as well that can now be cured with immunotherapies. And of course, with early detection, traditional treatments like surgery or radiation treatment can be curative.
You hear about like nanotechnology of sending in little tiny robots into a body to kind of like burn away all the cancers. Is this science fiction or is this a real thing?
There's a lot of research, but we're not using it in the clinic yet.
Okay. But you know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
But in my case, I actually had a robotic, as I was saying. So
a bigger robot.
Yeah, I did have a robotic procedure.
So how did it work?
It was wild. When you're told you have cancer, you start to go down this rabbit hole, right, of Google and Reddit,
right,
right, which in some cases is good, in some cases is bad. But at the end of the day, like we've been talking about, you're looking for education. And even though I was around cancer through my father and my uncle's journeys, I wasn't, I'm not academically aware of what I was getting ready to be going through. And one of the options was a robotic prostatectomy. And I initially had thought it was just maybe a certain kind of machine that the doctor would be using over me. And I saw a video actually on TikTok of this surgery being done, which was remarkable. I have 6 incisions on my stomach, and I had 6 prods put into me. And my doctor was in the corner of the room almost, the only thing I can describe it is that it's like gaming. Huh. He was in this booth, with the video I saw, they're in the booth basically performing this procedure because it's essentially microsurgery, which, as the doctor will explain to you, it's all about getting these margins and getting all the cancer out, but not getting too much out to where you can impact the wiring, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. Like Lyor mentioned, hip hop is turning 50 this year. And we've lost so many people so early. DMX, who you worked with very closely, who was a key member,
Love.
who you
miss
loved. He died of a heart attack. We actually had an interview scheduled with him. We'd already paid him everything. We were just waiting for him to come back to New York. He came back to New York, and then he died of a heart attack. Big Pun died of a heart attack. I think he was maybe 30 years old. Black Rob recently died of a heart attack. In terms of, even though this is not cancer, but this is a health question in general, what's really the best way to try to avoid heart attacks as you get older? Me personally, I'm on Crestor because I have high cholesterol. And my doctor told me, had I not gotten on this, I had a chance for both cancer because of all the cholesterol running through my system, as well as a heart attack. So what are the things to really prevent heart attacks as you get older?
Well, first and foremost, people need to be in the medical system, right? Because the best diagnosis and the best treatment recommendations can only happen if you show up and see a doctor. So we have not traditionally done as well about lifestyle recommendations, but I think that's really changed even in the time that I've been practicing medicine. In my cancer clinic, I talk a lot about diet and exercise as part of our treatment plan to help people stay healthy during their cancer treatment. And I think it's also out there in the, general practice or primary care community. So diet and exercise make a huge difference in your risk of something like a heart attack. Mm-hmm. But there may also be situations where you need medication, where you can't do it just with diet and exercise. So they go hand in hand, but it starts with getting your good preventive care, getting tested. You wouldn't have known you had high cholesterol if you hadn't done the blood test. And then you can lay out the options. You change your diet, you exercise more, and maybe you need the pill.
Well, yeah. And I also went to a cardiologist because my regular doctor just said, just eat a little bit less meat. You'll be fine. And when I went to a cardiologist, they were like, you got to get on Crestor right now.
So that's the difference with specialty care, right? Someone who is up to date on the latest and greatest, spends all their time focusing on this and can give you a more nuanced and comprehensive assessment.
Nate Dogg died from a stroke at age 41. What's the difference between a stroke and a heart attack?
Strokes can have more variable etiologies, variable reasons for them. So a heart attack almost always is a clogging of the arteries, the blood vessels that provide strength and nutrition to the heart. Those get clogged, then the heart muscle dies. That's a heart attack. Strokes can be that. We can plug up our arteries that go up to our brains or littler arteries within the brain that give it blood supply. But they can also be due to other things like high blood pressure and aneurysms. So a little more complex.
Yeah, my grandmother had a stroke later in life, and half her body was paralyzed from that point on. So from the moment she had her stroke, she ended up in a hospital and needed care to go to the bathroom, and she couldn't get up anymore. Like literally only one side of her body worked. And watching that was just terrible.
I think one of the most important things for me to do and work with the City of Hope is the visit that I had to the campus and meeting the doctors and meeting many of the people involved at the hospital. So I'm a big believer that the U.S. system is designed once you get sick.
Yeah.
And I believe that we could put a lot less stress on the system, lot less stress on the economics of how expensive healthcare is in America, lot less stress on our society by actually educating people of how to live a healthier life, okay? And how we could call out and regulate some of the, problems that I think a lot of our society is facing. The fast food traditionally was focused on Black and brown communities. We're talking about lots of different things that one can do to live a healthier life and put off some of the difficulties that people have when they are, getting diseases and becoming unhealthy. I think about love, community, exercise, good eating, being engaged with the world, doing good, all those things. I think people can live a healthier life and put less stress on their families and society in general.
Well, we lost Biz Markie recently from diabetes. And before then, maybe a couple of years ago, we lost Fife from A Tribe Called Quest, who you actually used to manage.
Yeah.
Right? You and Fife were close at one point.
Also tragic.
Yeah.
Every loss of life that is too early, too young, is tragic.
Yeah.
Families, friends, communities all get traumatized by it.
When you talk about diabetes, what are ways to really avoid it, and what should you do if you do get it? Because a lot of times diabetes is, you're not born with it. I mean, some people are, but other people have it through their lifestyle, gaining weight, the food they eat, and so forth. What do you deal with something that I think a lot of our viewers have, experience with?
So diabetes is a condition where your body can't handle sugar loads as well as a healthy body, right? So the obvious first step is, consuming less sugar.
Right.
And so things like fast food and supersized soda, works against us for sure. It's also exercise, because muscles are really important to helping us stay insulin sensitive, helping our bodies cope with sugar in healthier ways. So it's diet, but it's also really exercise. And one of the most important things that people can do to stay healthy and age well and stay functional is really being physically active. So I think there's been good attention to increasing activity starting in elementary school, just making sure that kids are active for enough time during the day and during the week to keep that metabolism and keep them healthy.
Vlad, you look like you could do 20 on a regular basis.
20 push-ups?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I try to get close to 100 a day.
Come on. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, when COVID hit in 2020, I was 30 pounds heavier. And I started reading about the connection between being overweight and dying from COVID. And I had multiple people who died that I knew, that I interviewed. My man K-Slay, who I'm sure you know as well, was my friend. And I remember I was texting him and I was like, how you doing? He's like, oh, I'm cool. Just trying to keep away from COVID. I'm like, oh, have you been vaccinated? Because I've been vaccinated myself. And he said, no, it doesn't work for all the variants. I'm going to wait until all the variants are done. Then I'm going to do it. To this day, I regret not saying anything because I should have argued with him. But I'm figuring this is a grown man. He's older than me. Who am I to tell him how to live his lifestyle?
I want to argue.
Yeah.
I want to argue. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
That's why I'm being honored. I want to argue. I want to stand on the top of a mountain and shout out, get early detection. Yes. Let's live a healthier life. Let's demystify what it means to get into the system. She said, get into the system. And I said, ooh, wait a second. That's problematic words, but it is getting into the system. It is getting into the medical system. It is having a track record, a way of following your health progress and keeping in touch with your doctors and getting early detection.
Yeah, I mean, I lost 30 pounds and I kept it off and I started exercising regularly. I do at least an hour a day on the treadmill. I'll play video games while I'm, on the treadmill, and I started counting my calories and it completely changed my life. But when you look at, for example, the Black community, so many people don't want to be vaccinated. So many people don't want to go to the doctor. There's a conspiracy theory kind of feeling in the community. I mean, if you go back to the Tuskegee experiments where they're actually experimenting on Black people and giving them diseases to see what would happen. So I think a lot of people in the Black community don't want to go to the doctor. They think that they're going to inject them with something that they can't recover from, or they're just going to do experiments on them. When you hear this type of stuff, how do you combat it? For me, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here,
right? As a person of color who survived a disease that other people that look like me have 2 to 4 times likelihood of passing away from. I wanted to be an example to share my story of early detection that saved my life. I have 2 young boys, and I have a wife, and I have a great life that I want to complete to its fullest. So I just wanted to be an example of that, and work with Lyor and the great team at City of Hope to share that education, because the medical community has not been kind to people of color, and that's well documented, known, and felt. And I can't honestly say that there probably still isn't things going on as to why the medical community is not favored by the Black community. But that being said, if I could be an example of somebody that said, you know what, I'm going to get my screenings, I'm going to get checked early, because I was actually screened before protocol to be screened for somebody my age, just to create a baseline.
Amazing.
just to get into the system, to know where I lived as a number. And if I wouldn't have done that, at some point in time, I may not be standing here.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, the conspiracy theory is crazy. Like, for example, Bronny James has a heart attack playing basketball, and millions of people are like, oh, it's because of the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing any other facts about it, not knowing pre-existing conditions, not knowing the status of his heart. But it's like whenever something happens to someone that's not explained, oh, it must be the vaccine, or it must be some sort of conspiracy to somehow take this person out, or, whether it's the Illuminati or whatever else, and most people don't go to the doctors. They don't get screenings. They don't have regular checkups. And, with Obamacare, you now have the situation where you don't have pre-existing conditions. I think a lot of people were scared to go to the hospital because then, oh, you already have something, but we can't treat it because it's pre-existing. Did that really change a lot when pre-existing conditions were taken away?
Obamacare was huge. I saw the impact in my own clinic. I was having patients before Obamacare where they'd be starting their chemo and then they'd be cut off from their insurance because, oh, it's a pre-existing condition, we're not going to cover you anymore. And they were in the middle of their cancer care.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And that completely stopped after the Obamacare rules went into effect. It had a huge impact.
Good.
Listen, Vlad, she needs to get back to the hospital to continue doing God's work.
Yes.
We're going to go to an event in Bel Air to celebrate Sylvia Rome, one of the great music executives in the business that's connected to the City of Hope. And we're grateful for you giving us this platform.
Absolutely.
So
Dr.
ask
Dorff.
your last question, bro.
Well, what's next for the City of Hope?
That's a big question.
That's a big question. I don't know if we want to, we could talk a little bit about the mobile screening units where, one of the things we talk about education and the Black community, and some of it has to do with access and the ability to have access to information that's credible from credible people. And City of Hope's doing a lot of things right now to go into the communities with that education, and also with the ability to screen people within the communities. So you don't necessarily have to go to a medical clinic to be screened. These mobile units will be going into the inner cities to work with that population.
Powerful.
Love it.
Powerful stuff.
We're also starting a collaboration with Zero Prostate to try to do, again, that outreach. We have many avenues by which we're trying to build trusted relationships and to say that City of Hope is here for you because we want you to have access to the very best in diagnosis and treatment. So we're moving on a lot of fronts to expand the number of patients who can come in and receive what we think is really top-notch care.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming in, all three of you. You guys are doing God's work.
Thank you.
In the words of Lyor, and I hope only the best for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Peace.